times like these for black women, where we try to show America what the path forward is, and then we keep writing memos that keep getting ignored. We've been doing that for hundreds and hundreds of years. Some of us are saying, I'm tired, I'm not going to write the memo anymore, which is a choice. But I take pleasure and pride in the fact that I can say loving things that are accurate and truthful to white people that would have gotten my grandparents lynched. And I'm never going to not be responsible to that privilege. Maybe we are inching forward. I wish I controlled the timeline. I don't. But I'm not giving up on our power, nor am I going to put too much faith in the wrong places to protect the humanity of black people, because we've never had that as a luxury, never had that as an option. What I'm seeing is the rest of America is getting treated like indigenous and black people have always been treated. So welcome to the party kind of thing. But I also think we're making progress, because you know what really excites me? The 45% of white people who vote against ideological white supremacy. In my parents' day, my parents were born in 1918 and 1922, I bet you it was as low as 10%. Because white supremacy was more dominant in the 20s. And I mean, millions of Klansmen marching on Washington, D.C., it felt like. And so we're inching forward. I'm just mad that I'm not in charge of the timeline. But I have no doubt that eventually we're going to get rid of ideological white supremacy, because we now have an increasing number of white people opposed to it as well. And I love that. I love that, even though we got the setbacks. But let's think about it. These people who are in charge right now, they're demographically doomed. Think about it. You think they're actually going to convince enough white women to drop out of the workforce and drop out of school and have 18 kids and counting? I don't think that's happening. Right? So they may try to define whiteness, to expand it. They may try to set up an apartheid system where only certain people have votes. They're going to try everything. But the problem that they have is that the fascist playbook has actually been written several times. So all we have to do is study it and figure out what their next steps are, because they're stunningly unoriginal. And just keep on marching towards justice.
I was going to ask about the feminist part of it, because women seem to be to irritate certain people.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, it's a tell how afraid they are of women of color in general, but black women in particular. Oh my God. It's like every accusation is a confession by them. Haven't you seen that? And so I pledge to get on their last nerves with every breath in my body. But yes, they are irritated by women who don't accept what we call in the feminist movement the patriarchal bargain, the submitting to a misogynist in hopes that that misogynist will not mess with you. Well, look how many Trump voters voted for a racist, voted for a corrupt businessman, are now surprised that his harm is now extending to them. Isn't that face-eating leopard kind of thing that the kids are talking about? Oh, you voted for the face-eating leopard. You just didn't think he was going to eat your face? But I'm not going to treat them with contempt. And nor am I going to say, I told you so. Because as far as I'm concerned, their palpable pain makes them potential allies. Because the best way to weaken the fascist movement is pull off that soft underbelly that goes along with injustice, hoping that in their fear, they will not be noticed. And I'm going after them.
So I think that's the mistake that many people make, is that they try to convince the most extremists to join them, as opposed to the malleable.
Oh yeah, I have a spheres of influence model that I talk about in my book. I think most of the people sitting in this room would be what I call my 90%ers, not because that's our portion of the population, but because we have a high degree of political unity amongst each other. That high unity thing. If I said the word neoliberal capitalism, y'all know what I'm talking about. I don't have to define it. If I say patriarchy, y'all know what I'm talking about. Our problem as 90 percenters is that we spend all our time trying to turn 90 percenters into 100 percenters. As if we have to be perfectly 100% aligned to be effective. And that's the problem of the hard left, because they think that perfect alignment is necessary in order to do anything. And then once we get everybody else marching in place to our tune, then we'll go after everybody else. I think that's strategically stupid, and that's cult-like. I say in the book, when many different people think many different things and they move in the same direction, that's a movement. Think about the women's movement. We don't all belong in the same organization. We don't even all have the same brand of feminism that we support, but we're all committed to ending patriarchy. Right? That's a movement. But when many different people think the same thought and they move in the same direction, wouldn't y'all call that a cult? So we gotta stop as 90 percenters using cult-like organizing tactics and instead pay attention to those 75 percenters that are outside of our 90% circle, but they may only vote once a year. That's their level of civic engagement. But they may put up a Black Lives Matter sign or a rainbow flag or something like that. And just by them doing that, you already know the number one thing you need to know about them. They're not in the Klan. They're not in the anti-trans movement. There's nobody who's in those organizations or think those thoughts send out those kinds of human rights signals. So our job is to figure out how to work with those 75%ers instead of condemning them for not being 90 percenters. So I'm a feminist, so my 75%er would be the Girl Scouts. You know, because they work on girls' empowerment. I'm with that agenda too, even though they may never say the phrase heteropatriarchy. And then outside of the 75s are the 50s. And those are people like my conservative parents, because they could go to the left or the right, depending on who talked to them. Dad was uber patriotic, 26-year military veteran, never passed a flag, he didn't salute. I mean, that was Dad, National Rifle Association, etc. Mom, Southern evangelical Christian. And so to my 50 percenters, I tend to go underneath their words and talk about their values. So my parents believed in church and community service. So when I talk to them, I would say, you feed the hungry, while I ask why they're hungry in the first place. I'm living out your values, Mom and Dad, in a different way. 50 percenters you can always talk to. Matter of fact, in the South, I start a lot of conversations with people flying Trump paraphernalia over grits and fried green tomatoes. You can culturally reach a lot of people in a way that politics doesn't.